I'm Cole, 35, a software developer from Boston who created an AI security system that changed everything. My family never thought I'd amount to much, especially my sister Allison. When our annual Thanksgiving dinner came around, she told me I wasn't ready to sit with the family yet. So I stayed home alone, focused on closing my deal, and watched it break on the news instead. Funny how success changes how people see you. Before I tell you how my family went from shutting me out to camping in my lobby, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated by the people who should believe in you most. Growing up in the Marshall family meant living with impossibly high standards. I was the middle child sandwiched between two perfect siblings who seemed genetically programmed for traditional success. My father, James, was a renowned cardiovascular surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital, saving lives and earning accolades that filled an entire wall in his home office. My mother, Patricia, held a tenured position as a professor of economics at Harvard, publishing papers that shaped fiscal policy across the country. My older sister, Allison, followed in Mom's academic footsteps before becoming a ruthlessly effective corporate lawyer, while my younger brother, Bradley, was the investment banker wonderkind who made his first million before turning 25. And then there was me, Cole Marshall, the creative one, the dreamer, the kid who took apart computers instead of studying for standardized tests. I wasn't a bad student, but next to my siblings' perfect GPAs and test scores, my solid B+ average looked like failure. I was more interested in how things worked than in memorizing facts for exams. I'd spend hours coding while my siblings attended academic decathlons and debate competitions. When is Cole going to find something practical to focus on? This question became the constant refrain at family dinners. I'd sit there quietly as they discussed Allison's latest courtroom victory or Bradley's newest investment strategy, feeling increasingly invisible. My father would pat me on the shoulder and say, "You just haven't found your path yet, son," but the subtext was clear: my path wasn't measuring up to the Marshall family standard. The breaking point came during my sophomore year at Boston University. While my siblings had attended Ivy League schools, BU was considered a step down in the family hierarchy. I was studying computer science, but spending most of my time developing an algorithm for enhanced security authentication that I believed could revolutionize online privacy. When I told my family I wanted to drop out and start my own tech company, you would have thought I'd announced plans to join a cult. "You cannot be serious," my father said, putting down his fork at Sunday dinner. "You need credentials in this world, Cole." My mother was more diplomatic but equally dismissive. "Darling, finish your degree first. Then you can play with your computer ideas." But it was Allison who cut the deepest. "This is just another example of your immaturity," she said, not even looking up from her plate. "This isn't a real career plan, Cole. It's a fantasy." Only my grandfather Robert, my father's father, showed any support. A self-made man who built a construction business from nothing, he pulled me aside after dinner. "They don't understand people like us," he whispered, slipping me a check for $5,000. "Go make something, prove them wrong." He passed away 3 months later, never getting to see what his belief in me would eventually create. I dropped out the following week, moved into a tiny apartment with 2 roommates, and used my grandfather's money to buy equipment. My parents reduced communication to terse monthly phone calls. Bradley treated my decision as an embarrassing family secret, but Allison was the worst, sending articles about tech startup failures and job postings for entry-level IT positions. "Just trying to help you have a backup plan," she'd say with that mixture of condescension and pity that became her default tone with me. The family events became increasingly uncomfortable. At Thanksgiving that year, I was seated at the kids' table despite being 22 years old. By Christmas, conversations stopped when I entered rooms. My projects in progress were never deemed important enough to discuss alongside Allison's law firm partnership track or Bradley's portfolio performance. The pattern continued for years. As my family climbed higher in their prestigious careers, I was systematically excluded from their narrative of success. Holiday invitations became conditional on not discussing my hobby, as they called my business. Family photos mysteriously featured everyone but me. When my grandmother had her 75th birthday celebration, Allison called to tell me the dress code was successful professional. When I arrived in my best suit, she took one look at me and said I meant successful by normal standards, Cole, not startup casual. I ended up in none of the official family photos that day. By the time I turned 30, the pattern was set. I was the family's cautionary tale, the example of potential squandered. What they didn't know was that their rejection had only hardened my resolve to succeed on my own terms. The first 3 years after leaving college were brutal. Boston winters feel especially cold when you're choosing between heating your apartment and buying server space. I worked as a barista in the mornings, did freelance coding projects all afternoon, and developed my security software deep into the night. I slept on an air mattress that slowly deflated through the night, leaving me essentially on the hardwood floor by morning. My roommates eventually moved out, unable to tolerate my around-the-clock work schedule and the constant ramen smell. I couch-surfed for months, carrying my laptop and a backpack of clothes from friend to friend, until everyone's hospitality wore thin. It was during this low point, sleeping in a 24-hour coffee shop and pretending to work while actually catching naps, that I met Marcus Reed. He caught me closing my eyes for too long, and instead of reporting me to management, he sat down and asked what I was working on. Marcus had just sold his small web development company and was looking for his next project. Unlike my family, he actually listened when I explained my vision for an AI-driven security system that could recognize patterns invisible to traditional security protocols. Where they heard fantasy, he heard potential. "You're thinking 5 years ahead of the market," he said, eyes wide, after I showed him my prototype. "This could change everything." 2 weeks later, we were business partners, working out of his spare bedroom with a whiteboard, 2 laptops, and endless determination. Marcus invested $70,000 to get us started enough to register the company, file preliminary patents, and create a functioning demo. But our first real venture, SecureCore, failed spectacularly after 18 months. We misjudged the market timing, launched too early with too many bugs, and burned through our capital before gaining traction. Marcus was undeterred. "Edison failed thousands of times before the light bulb," he reminded me as we packed up our small office. "We just found one way that doesn't work." Our second attempt was more focused. We named it Quantum Lock and concentrated solely on developing the AI aspect of the security system. We lived on instant noodles and worked out of a shared workspace where we could only afford to rent desk space 3 days a week. The other days we worked from public libraries or any coffee shop with free Wi-Fi and lenient policies on how long customers could stay. The algorithm was revolutionary, but convincing anyone to invest proved nearly impossible. Venture capitalists would listen politely before explaining that our goals were too ambitious, our team too small, our experience too limited. "Come back when you have more traction" became the standard rejection. After 37 failed investment pitches, we were nearly ready to give up. Our personal savings were depleted, and Marcus had already taken out a second mortgage on his condo. We gave ourselves 1 month to find funding before we would have to shelve the project and find regular jobs. That's when Rachel Kim entered our story. A partner at Horizon Ventures, she specialized in high-risk, high-reward tech investments. Unlike other VCs who sent junior associates to our pitch, Rachel came herself and asked questions that showed she truly understood what we were building. "Everyone else is thinking about fixing today's security problems," she said after our presentation. "You're preventing tomorrow's. That's where the real value island." Rachel invested $1.5 million for a 15% stake in Quantum Lock. It wasn't the largest seed round in Boston's tech scene, but it was enough to rent real office space, hire 4 key employees, and give ourselves actual salaries for the first time in years. Dominic Alvarez joined as our lead engineer, a coding genius who could translate my theoretical algorithms into functioning code faster than anyone I'd ever met. Sophia Washington came aboard to handle marketing and business development, bringing connections from her years at larger tech firms. With a real team in place, Quantum Lock began to gain momentum. Our first client was a small regional bank, looking for enhanced security after a minor breach. The implementation wasn't perfect, but our system caught several intrusion attempts that their traditional security had missed. Word began to spread in financial circles. By year 3, we had 27 clients, mostly small to mid-sized financial institutions, and a few healthcare companies with sensitive data concerns. We were profitable, though, just barely, and beginning to draw attention from industry publications. An article in Tech Innovator called our approach potentially revolutionary and placed us on their companies to watch list. I sent the article to my family, hoping for some acknowledgement. My mother replied with a brief, "Congratulations." My father said nothing, and Bradley sent back, "Nice write-up, bro," which was actually progress for him. Allison's response was typically, "Allison, interesting small start. Let me know when Fortune or Wall Street Journal covers you." Despite the continued family skepticism, we were gaining legitimate industry recognition. Security Tech Summit invited me to speak on an innovation panel. Our system prevented a major data breach at a client's company, saving them potentially millions in damages, and yielding our first genuine case study. Most significantly, we began preliminary conversations with Global Tech, one of the largest technology corporations in the world. Their head of security had seen our presentation at a conference and reached out about potential applications for their cloud services division. It was early discussions, but even getting in their door was a massive validation of our approach. As Thanksgiving approached in our 4th year of operation, Quantum Lock stood at a precipice between remaining a promising startup and becoming a genuine industry player. The Global Tech deal, if it came through, would transform everything. I was working 16-hour days finalizing our proposal, refining the technology, and preparing for what could be the most important business meeting of my life. For the first time in years, I felt I had something that might actually impress my family. Something that even they couldn't dismiss as a hobby or a phase. Something that might finally earn me a place at the adults' table. The Marshall family Thanksgiving was an institution, a carefully choreographed event that showcased our family's accomplishments as much as my mother's culinary skills. The dining room would be immaculately decorated, the conversation curated to highlight professional achievements, and the seating arranged to reflect the current family hierarchy. As November approached, I found myself actually wanting to attend for the first time in years. Quantum Lock was on the verge of something big, with the Global Tech negotiations progressing well. I had genuine accomplishments to share, metrics and milestones that even my statistics-obsessed family might appreciate. I called my mother on a Sunday afternoon 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. She sounded surprised to hear from me, as our communication had dwindled to obligatory birthday calls and the occasional text message. "Cole, what a nice surprise," she said, her voice carrying that slight hesitation that suggested she was waiting for bad news or a request for money. "Hi, Mom, I was calling about Thanksgiving. I'd like to come this year." There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. "Oh, well, we're doing the usual time, 3 o'clock. Your Aunt Catherine and Uncle Thomas will be there with the cousins." "Great," I said, encouraged by the lack of immediate rejection. "I've got some exciting news about the company. We're in final negotiations with Global Tech for a major implementation of our security system." "That sounds promising," she said, her tone warming slightly. "Your father will be interested to hear about that. He just started using one of those password manager things for his patient files." It wasn't exactly enthusiastic support, but it was more positive engagement than I'd received in years. We chatted for a few more minutes, and she even asked some basic questions about how the business worked. By the end of the call, I felt cautiously optimistic about Thanksgiving. That optimism lasted exactly 3 days until Allison called. "Cole, it's your sister," she announced, as though I might have forgotten her voice after 30-plus years of her telling me what to do. "Hey Allison, what's up? I was in the middle of coding, but I put my work aside." Allison rarely called without a specific purpose. "Mom mentioned you're planning to come to Thanksgiving." "That's right. The company's doing really well, and I thought it would be nice to reconnect with everyone." I tried to keep my tone light, collaborative. "About that," she said, her lawyer voice in full effect, "I don't think it's a good idea this year." "What? Why not?" "Well, Franklin will be there." Franklin was her husband, a tax attorney with the personality of dry toast. And he's bringing his boss and his boss's wife. Bradley's also bringing his new girlfriend, Hannah, whose father is the dean of finance at Wharton. It's going to be a very professional gathering. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the same sensation I'd experienced at countless family events where I was treated as an embarrassing anomaly. I'm a professional too, Allison. My company is about to close a major deal with Global Tech. You know, one of the largest tech corporations in the world. That's nice, Cole. And we're all hoping your little startup works out. But let's be realistic, you're not quite ready to sit with the family yet. Not with these particular guests. Not ready. I'm 35 years old, Allison. I've built a company from nothing that's now on the verge of a major industry breakthrough. A potential breakthrough, she corrected. Nothing signed yet, right? That's what Mom said. Look, once you have some real success, something concrete to show, you'll fit right back in with the family. But right now, all you have are promises and potential. That doesn't quite measure up to what everyone else brings to the table. The familiar anger and hurt bubbled up inside me. I wanted to shout to tell her about our client list, our growth metrics, the industry recognition. But years of this treatment had taught me it would never be enough until I hit some nebulous threshold of success that kept moving every time I got close. Fine, I said finally. Tell Mom I won't make it after all. I'll be too busy working on my little startup. Don't be like that, Cole. We're just trying to maintain certain standards. I'm sure you understand. I hung up without responding, staring at my computer screen where the code for our global tech proposal glowed back at me. The rejection stung, but something else was emerging through the pain determination. If my sister thought I wasn't ready to sit with the family, perhaps she was right, but not for the reasons she believed. Perhaps I had outgrown the need for their validation altogether. I texted Marcus and Sophia, who had both invited me to their Thanksgiving gatherings when they heard I might be alone. I declined both offers. This Thanksgiving, while my family hosted their very professional gathering, I would be working on finalizing the biggest deal of my career. You're seriously going to work through Thanksgiving? Sophia asked when I told her my plan the next day. That's a little depressing, Cole. Actually, it feels right, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. For once, I'm choosing my own path completely, not trying to earn my way back to a table where I was never really welcome. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. Their loss, man. But if you change your mind, my door's open. My mom makes enough food for an army. I spent the week leading up to Thanksgiving in a state of focused determination. Every slight, every dismissive comment, every condescending look from my family had been quietly fueling my drive for years. Now, rather than trying to prove them wrong, I was simply moving forward on my own terms. The Global Tech proposal was nearly complete, but there were still technical challenges to solve. Their security infrastructure was complex, and integrating our system would require custom solutions. These were exactly the kind of puzzles that had always captivated me, the challenges my family had dismissed as frivolous hobbies. As Thursday approached, I received a text from my mother. "We'll miss you tomorrow. Maybe Christmas." It was a peace offering of sorts, but the implied conditionality was clear. My presence remained optional, dependent on factors beyond simply being their son and brother. I replied with a non-committal, "We'll see," and turned my attention back to the work that now defined me far more than my family name ever had. Thanksgiving Day dawned clear and cold in Boston. From my apartment window, I could see families carrying covered dishes across the street, heading to gatherings where they were unconditionally welcome. For a brief moment I felt a pang of loneliness, but it dissipated as I turned to my desk and opened my laptop. Today was more than just a holiday I was skipping. It was the day Global Tech's executive team would review our final proposal. While most of America ate turkey and watched football, decisions were being made that could transform Quantum Lock from promising startup to industry leader. I made a pot of coffee, set up multiple monitors on my dining table, and dove into last-minute optimizations of our presentation materials. Our proposal to Global Tech was comprehensive, implementing our AI security system across their cloud services division, protecting data for millions of users worldwide. The contract value was substantial, but the credibility of having Global Tech as a client would be worth even more. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Happy Turkey Day, man. How's it going?" I sent back a quick update and a photo of my workspace surrounded by empty coffee cups and takeout containers. Marcus replied hardcore, My mom says there's a plate for you if you change your mind. I smiled but stayed focused. The holiday provided an unusual quiet, no emails or calls interrupting my flow state. By mid-afternoon, when my family would be sitting down to dinner, I had refined our integration timeline and added several security enhancements that strengthened our proposal. At 4:30, my concentration was broken by an incoming email from Linda Zhao, Global Tech's Chief Security Officer. My heart raced as I opened it. Cole, our team reviewed your proposal this morning. Very impressive overall, but we have concerns about scaling the system for our user volume. Can we discuss solutions? This wasn't rejection, but it wasn't approval either. It was a challenge one that needed an immediate response. I called Marcus, who answered amid the sound of family chatter in the background. We've got a potential roadblock with Global Tech, I explained. They're worried about scale. Want me to come over? I can leave in 20. No, enjoy your family time. I'll take a first crack at it and call if I need backup. I spent the next 3 hours rebuilding portions of our architecture, designing a more distributed approach that could handle Global Tech's massive user base. As the evening wore on, I lost track of time, fully immersed in solving the puzzle before me. At 9:15, my phone rang. It was Rachel Kim, our investor. Shouldn't you be in a turkey coma right now? I asked. I could ask you the same thing, she replied. I just got a call from my contact at Global Tech. They said you sent over revised architecture specs an hour ago, on Thanksgiving evening. They're impressed with the responsiveness. Did they say anything about the technical solution? They're reviewing it now. Their team actually went back to the office after dinner to look at it. That's a good sign, Cole. Very good. After hanging up, I paced my apartment, too anxious to sit still. This was the culmination of years of work of believing in something no one else could see. If the deal went through, it would validate everything. If it didn't, my computer chimed with an incoming video call request at 11:20. It was Linda Zhao. I took a deep breath, straightened my shirt, and accepted the call. Linda's face appeared the Global Tech office, visible behind her. Several other people were gathered around a conference table looking at screens. Cole, hope we're not interrupting your holiday too much, she began. Not at all. What did you think of the revised architecture? Linda glanced at her team, then back at the camera. We think it's brilliant. The distributed processing approach solves our scaling concerns, and the redundancy features actually improve on our current security protocols. I tried to maintain a professional demeanor, but inside I was soaring. We'd like to move forward, she continued. Our legal team is drafting the contract now. This will be the largest security implementation we've ever undertaken with an external partner. The call continued for another 30 minutes as we discussed implementation details and timeline. By the time we disconnected, it was official. Quantum Lock had landed the largest security technology deal in the industry that year. I sat in stunned silence for several minutes after the call ended. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not from sadness, but from vindication relief and the sudden release of pressure that had been building since the day my family first dismissed my dreams. At midnight, as Thanksgiving officially ended, my doorbell rang. Marcus stood there holding a bottle of champagne, grinning widely. Rachel called me, he explained. Said we had something to celebrate. We popped the champagne, drinking straight from the bottle like the broke startup founders we'd once been. Marcus raised a toast to the guy who skipped Thanksgiving dinner and landed the biggest deal of the year instead. Later, as Marcus was leaving, he paused at the door. Are you going to call your family? Tell them about the deal. I considered it for a moment. Number. The announcement goes public tomorrow morning. They can find out along with everyone else. Marcus nodded, understanding the years of context behind that decision. Well, I'm proud of you, man. You built something real, something important. After he left, I sat by my window looking out at the quiet post-holiday street. Somewhere across the city, my family was sleeping in their elegant homes, unaware that by morning my name would be appearing in business news headlines nationwide. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't need their approval or recognition. I had built my own table, and it turned out to be larger and more significant than theirs had ever been. I woke the next morning to the insistent buzzing of my phone. Disoriented and still wearing yesterday's clothes, I fumbled to silence the noise without checking who was calling. The digital clock on my nightstand read 6:15 far earlier than I typically started my day. The phone immediately began buzzing again. This time I glanced at the screen. Marcus was calling, which was unusual this early. I answered groggily. "Dude, turn on the news right now," he said without preamble. "Channel 7. "What, why?" I asked, stumbling toward the living room. "Just do it. Trust me." I switched on the television and found the local morning news. To my shock, my own face was on the screen alongside the Quantum Lock logo. The caption below read, "Boston Tech Startup Lands Historic Deal with Global Tech." The news anchor was mid-sentence, estimated to be worth over $120 million, making it the largest security technology acquisition in industry history. Quantum Lock, founded by Boston native Cole Marshall, will implement their artificial intelligence security system across Global Tech's entire cloud infrastructure. "What the hell?" I muttered into the phone. The press release wasn't supposed to go out until 9. Global Tech jumped the gun. Marcus explained, his voice brimming with excitement. Their CEO announced it during a pre-market interview on Bloomberg. "It's everywhere, man. TNBC, Fox Business, Wall Street Journal, online. We're trending on Twitter." I sank onto my couch watching as the news segment continued, showing B-roll footage of our office building and stock photos of cybersecurity concepts. They cut to a brief clip of Linda Zhao praising our technology as revolutionary and years ahead of conventional security approaches. "This is insane," I said, still processing. "Check your email and messages," Marcus suggested. "I bet they're blowing up." He was right. When I looked at my phone, I had 73 new emails, 47 text messages, and countless notifications from LinkedIn, Twitter, and other platforms. Industry contacts, former colleagues, old friends, and complete strangers were all reaching out, congratulating me, or seeking connections. As I scrolled through the messages, my phone rang again. This time it was my mother. I hesitated before answering, unsure of what to say after yesterday's rejection. Finally, I accepted the call. "Cole." My mother's voice had a quality I'd rarely heard before: uncertainty. "Hi, Mom. We just saw you on the morning news. Your company, this deal with Global Tech, is it really worth over $100 million? $127.5 million to be exact," I replied, a small part of me enjoying the shock value of the number, plus implementation fees and a 5-year service contract. There was silence on the other end. Then what sounded like my father's voice in the background asking questions. "Your father wants to know if this island, real, if it's definite." The contracts were signed last night. The announcement went out early this morning. So yes, it's very real. "Oh my goodness," she breathed. "Cole, why didn't you tell us? We had no idea it was this serious." I tried to, Mom. "Remember when I called about Thanksgiving? But Allison said I wasn't ready to sit with the family yet." Another pause. "That was a misunderstanding," she said carefully. "We would have loved to have you there if we'd known about this wonderful news. That's kind of the point, isn't it? I should be welcome regardless of news or deals or dollar amounts." Before she could respond, my call waiting beeped. It was Bradley. "Mom, I need to take this. Bradley's calling." Of course. We'll talk more later. We're very proud of you, Cole." I switched to Bradley's call, bracing myself for whatever version of my brother I was about to encounter. "Cole, holy shit, man," Bradley exclaimed, sounding genuinely excited. "You're all over the financial news. My colleagues are asking if you're my brother. This is incredible." "Thanks, Bradley. It's been a long time coming." "No kidding. Listen, we should get together soon. I've got some contacts at Morgan Stanley who would love to discuss investment opportunities now that you're scaling up." Of course. Bradley wasn't just congratulating me. He was positioning himself to benefit from my success. Still, it was the most enthusiastic he'd been about my career ever. "Sure, we can talk about that sometime," I said, non-committally. Great. "Hey, did Allison call you yet?" "No, why?" Bradley chuckled. "She's freaking out. Called me at 5:30 this morning when she saw the early business reports. I think she's worried you're going to tell everyone how she uninvited you from Thanksgiving. That's not really my style, I said, though the thought had briefly crossed my mind. Well, expect a call. She's in full damage control mode. Anyway, congrats again. This is massive. After hanging up with Bradley, I noticed Allison had indeed called 3 times and left multiple text messages, each more urgent than the last. Cole, call me as soon as you get this. Just saw the news. We need to talk. Please call back. It's important. I set my phone aside without responding. Let her sweat a little, I thought. After years of diminishing my work, a few hours of uncertainty seemed fair. My phone continued to explode with notifications throughout the morning. Rachel called to discuss the PR strategy, now that the news had broken early. Sophia was coordinating with journalists for follow-up interviews. Dominic was fielding technical questions from Global Tech's implementation team. In the midst of this whirlwind, I received an unexpected call from Darius Jackson, my freshman year roommate, who had gone on to become a reporter for the Boston Business Journal. Cole, Marshall Tech, wonderkind. Should have kept in better touch, man. Darius, long time. I'm guessing this isn't just a social call. That obvious, huh? Yeah, I'm writing the feature on your Global Tech deal. Everyone's talking about the dollar amount, but I want the human story. The journey. Give me something nobody else has. I considered for a moment. How about this? Yesterday, while I was finalizing this historic deal, my own sister told me I wasn't successful enough to attend family Thanksgiving. Darius whistled. That's cold, and perfect for my angle. Mind if I use that? I hesitated, then decided against it. Actually, let's keep family out of it. Focus on the technology and the business challenges instead. Your call. But that would have made one hell of a lead. By noon, I finally returned Allison's call more out of curiosity than obligation. Cole, thank God, she answered immediately. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I've been busy. Lots of press and industry calls about the deal. Yes, the deal. It's impressive. Truly. I had no idea things had progressed to this level. That's because you never asked Allison. None of you did. She sighed heavily. I may have been hasty in my assessment yesterday about Thanksgiving. It was poor judgment on my part. This was as close to an apology as Allison Marshall had ever given anyone. Under different circumstances, I might have savored it more. Instead, I felt strangely detached. Water under the bridge, I said. Was there something specific you needed? Actually, yes. The family is getting together tomorrow for lunch at Dad and Mom's. We'd very much like you to join us. Franklin's boss was quite impressed when your name came up at dinner yesterday. He apparently uses Global Tech services for his firm and was fascinated to learn about the family connection. There it was. Not an invitation based on familial love or genuine interest in my life, but on what social capital my sudden success could provide. I'll check my schedule, I said neutrally. We're in full implementation mode now, so things are pretty hectic. Please try to make it, she pressed. It would mean a lot to everyone. After ending the call, I stood by my apartment window watching people on the street below going about their normal Friday activities, unaware that my life had transformed overnight. The familiar Boston skyline looked different somehow, as if the buildings had shifted slightly while I slept. It wasn't the city that had changed, of course. It was me, and more importantly, how the world perceived me. I turned back to my laptop where emails continued to pour in. Among them was a message from Darius' subject line, "Just saw this." He had attached a link to a business forum where someone had posted Quantum Lock CEO Cole Marshall was reportedly working through Thanksgiving to close the Global Tech deal, while his family celebrated without him. Talk about dedication. The story was already taking on a life of its own. By tomorrow, who knew what narrative would emerge? One thing was certain. I wasn't the same invisible middle child anymore. For better or worse, I was now Cole Marshall Tech success story. And my family, who couldn't make room for me at their Thanksgiving table, would be dealing with that new reality very soon. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and a crisp November chill. I had spent most of Friday fielding press inquiries, reassuring clients that the Global Tech deal wouldn't affect their service and beginning preliminary implementation planning with Linda's team. I had deliberately avoided giving Allison a definitive answer about the family lunch, partly because I genuinely was busy, but also because I needed time to decide how I wanted to handle this new dynamic with my family. In the end, I chose to focus on work. Quantum Lock's offices were typically closed on weekends, but today the core team was coming in to strategize our next steps. Success brought its own challenges. We needed to scale our operations, quickly hire additional staff, and ensure we could deliver on the promises we'd made to Global Tech. I arrived at our building around 8:30 earlier than the rest of the team. The security guard in the lobby nodded with new respect as I passed, clearly having seen the news. Our office occupied half of the 12th floor in a renovated factory building in Boston's Innovation District with exposed brick walls and large windows overlooking the harbor. As I approached the elevator, the guard called out, "Mr. Marshall, you have visitors waiting upstairs." "Visitors who?" "A family," they said. "4 people. They've been here since 8. I sent them up to your floor's waiting area." My stomach tightened. There was only one family this could be. When the elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, I immediately saw them through the glass doors of our reception area. My father standing stiffly by the window, my mother perched nervously on the edge of a chair, Bradley examining our awards wall with his hands clasped behind his back, and Allison pacing while checking her phone. For a moment, I considered hitting the elevator button and descending back to the lobby, but they had already spotted me. I pushed through the glass doors, and there was an awkward moment where no one seemed to know the appropriate greeting. My mother rose first, moving toward me with arms outstretched. "Cole, darling, your office is lovely." I accepted her hug, feeling the unfamiliar stiffness between us. "Thanks, Mom. I wasn't expecting visitors today." "We tried calling," my father said, stepping forward to shake my hand formally, but it went straight to voicemail. "I turned my phone off last night. Needed a break from the constant calls." Allison approached next, her expression a carefully constructed mask of sisterly pride. "We thought we'd surprise you. Celebrate your big news in person." Before I could respond, the elevator dinged again, and Marcus stepped out, coffee carrier in hand. He stopped short at the sight of my family. "Oh, sorry. Didn't realize you had company." He looked at me questioningly. "It's fine, Marcus. This is my family. They dropped by unexpectedly." I performed brief introductions, watching as my family registered that Marcus, with his casual attire and relaxed demeanor, was my business partner, the co-architect of our success. "Great to finally meet you all," Marcus said with a pointed emphasis on finally that didn't escape anyone's notice. "Cole's told me so much about you." An uncomfortable silence followed, broken when the security guard approached with a concerned expression. "Everything okay here, Mr. Marshall? These people said they were family, but they're not on the approved visitor list." It was a small thing, but seeing my family, who had always been the ones with authority and status, being questioned about their right to be in my space, shifted something fundamental in the dynamic. "It's fine, Dave. They're with me," I assured him. "Sorry about that," Dave said, turning to my family. "We've had to tighten security since yesterday. Lots of people trying to get in to see Mr. Marshall since the news broke." My father looked surprised at the deference in Dave's tone. My brother seemed impressed, despite himself. Allison's expression was unreadable. "Why don't we go into the conference room?" I suggested, leading them past the reception area into our main office space. Our headquarters wasn't lavish by corporate standards, but it was modern and thoughtfully designed. Whiteboard walls covered with complex diagrams, comfortable workstations, and the glass-walled server room housing. Our development environment all spoke to a successful operation. As we walked, I noticed my family taking everything in, recalibrating their mental image of my hobby. In the conference room, with its view of Boston Harbor, we sat around the large table where just days ago we had finalized the Global Tech proposal. Now it was the stage for a very different kind of negotiation. "This is all quite impressive, Cole." My father began gesturing at the office. "You've built something substantial here." "Thank you," I replied simply. "Why didn't you tell us it had gotten this serious?" my mother asked, her tone somewhere between hurt and accusatory. "All these years we thought you were just, well." "Just what, Mom?" I asked quietly. "Just wasting my time, just avoiding real work, just failing to live up to the Marshall family standard. That's not fair, Allison interjected. We were concerned about your stability, your future. This industry is notoriously volatile. So is the stock market, I countered, looking at Bradley. So is the legal profession in a changing economy. Everything has risks. The difference is you never believed mine were worth taking. My father cleared his throat. Perhaps we were too traditional in our thinking, too focused on established paths, but we always wanted what was best for you. Did you? Or did you want what would reflect best on you? The question hung in the air, uncomfortably direct after years of polite evasions and unspoken judgments. Bradley surprisingly broke the tension. He's right, Dad. We were all pretty dismissive of Cole's work. I know I was. He turned to me. That was short-sighted of me, bro. What you've built here is impressive as hell. This unexpected support from Bradley shifted the energy in the room. My mother's eyes welled with tears. We're so proud of you now, Cole, she said, reaching for my hand across the table. So very proud. Now I repeated, withdrawing my hand gently but firmly. That's the operative word, isn't it? Now that there's external validation, now that the business world has deemed my work valuable, now that my success might actually benefit you socially. That's not fair, Allison said again, but with less conviction. Isn't it you literally told me 2 days ago that I wasn't ready to sit with the family, that I needed real success before I could be included? Well, here it is by your definition. And suddenly, everyone's proud and supportive. My father, ever the pragmatist, attempted to redirect the conversation. What's past is past, Cole. We're here now because we want to be part of your life going forward. Your success opens many doors, and we can help you navigate these new waters. I have contacts in venture capital who could— Stop, I interrupted, raising my hand. Just stop. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're already positioning yourselves to capitalize on my success rather than simply being happy for me. The conference room door opened, and Sophia entered with a tablet in hand. She paused, sensing the tension. Sorry to interrupt. The Global Tech Implementation team is on the line for the scheduled call. I'll be right there, I said, grateful for the interruption. My family was just leaving. But we just got here, my mother protested. We thought we could take you to lunch, celebrate properly. I'm working today. We have a $127 million contract to implement. I stood, signaling the end of the conversation. I appreciate you coming by, but this isn't a good time. As the others reluctantly rose to leave, Allison remained seated. Could I speak with Cole privately for a moment? She asked, looking at our parents and Bradley. They nodded and filed out my father already on his phone, probably calling one of those venture capital contacts he'd mentioned. When we were alone, Allison's carefully constructed facade cracked slightly. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making us grovel after years of being the family disappointment. I'm not making anyone grovel, Allison. I'm just not pretending the past didn't happen. People make mistakes, Cole. We misjudged your potential. We're trying to make amends. Are you? Or are you trying to save face now that your unsuccessful brother is making headlines? She flinched at the directness of the question. For perhaps the first time in our adult relationship, I saw genuine regret in her eyes. Both probably, she admitted with unexpected honesty. Does that make me terrible? It makes you human. But it doesn't erase years of condescension and exclusion. What do you want from us, Cole? An official apology? Public self-flagellation? What would make this right for you? I considered the question seriously. I don't want anything from you, Allison. That's the point you're missing. For years, I wanted your approval, your acceptance. I wanted a place at the family table. Now I realize I've built my own table, and it's actually bigger and more meaningful than the one you were keeping me from. She nodded slowly, absorbing this. So where does that leave us? As a family? That depends on whether you're interested in knowing me as a person, not just as a successful businessman who happens to share your DNA. If you want a relationship with me that isn't based on what I can do for you, or how I reflect on you, I'm open to that. And if we can't offer that, then we'll keep things cordial and distant just as they've been. The only difference is, Now I'm at peace with it. Allison stood smoothing her immaculate pantsuit. You've changed, Cole. And not just because of the money. No, I agreed. The money just made you notice. She extended her hand formally as if concluding a business meeting. Congratulations on your success. Genuinely. I shook her hand, feeling the strange mix of familiarity and distance between us. Thank you. I hope you find what you're looking for, Allison, whatever that might be. As I watched my family leave through the lobby doors below, I felt no triumph or vindication, just a quiet certainty that whatever happened next would be on my terms, not theirs. Marcus approached, standing beside me at the window. Family, huh? Can't live with them. Can't throw them out of your lobby without causing a scene, I finished with a small smile. You okay? I nodded, turning away from the window. Yeah, better than okay. Let's get back to work. We've got an empire to build. 6 months after the global tech deal, Quantum Lock had transformed from promising startup to industry leader. Our staff had grown from 12 to 78. We'd moved to larger offices occupying 3 floors of a downtown high-rise with views of Boston Harbor. Our security system was being implemented across major corporations worldwide, and our company valuation had multiplied several times over. Success brought its own challenges. I was no longer just a coder with a vision. I was a CEO with responsibilities to employees, clients, and investors. The hours were longer, the decisions weightier, but the work remained deeply satisfying because we were building something that mattered. More difficult to navigate was the changed relationship with my family. In the months following our lobby confrontation, we'd established a new dynamic, one built on cautious distance rather than constant validation seeking on my part. My mother made the most genuine efforts to reconnect. She called regularly, asking thoughtful questions about my work and life without the dismissive undertones that had previously characterized our interactions. She'd even taken an online course about cybersecurity basics, saying she wanted to understand my world better. I was wrong about your path, Cole, she admitted during a rare dinner together, just the two of us. I was so focused on what success looked like in my generation that I couldn't see you were creating something new and important. My father maintained a more formal relationship, sending occasional emails with relevant articles about the tech industry or security breaches that might interest me. It was his way of saying he was paying attention now, even if he couldn't quite bring himself to admit how thoroughly he'd dismissed my potential. Bradley surprisingly became something of an ally. Once the initial awkwardness passed, his straightforward business mind appreciated what we'd built at Quantum Lock. He didn't pretend to understand the technology, but he respected the results. We occasionally met for drinks, keeping conversations light and finding common ground in the challenges of leadership. Allison remained the most distant. Our interaction at the office that day had exposed truths neither of us was entirely comfortable acknowledging. We saw each other at occasional family events, but maintained a polite detachment that was probably healthier than the condescension and resentment that had characterized our relationship before. The most meaningful relationships in my life were now with the people who had believed in me when belief wasn't easy. Marcus, who had invested not just money but faith in my vision. Sophia, whose marketing brilliance had helped translate our technical achievements into business success. Dominic, who had coded alongside me during countless late nights. And Rachel, who had seen potential where others saw only risk. These were the people who sat at my table now, both literally and figuratively. We celebrated milestones together, supported each other through challenges, and built something larger than any of us could have created alone. Perhaps the most unexpected development in my post-success life was meeting Natalie Chen, a brilliant data scientist who joined our team to help refine our AI algorithms. Unlike most people I met now, she had no idea who I was when we first encountered each other in the company kitchen at 3 a.m, both of us working late. You look like you need this more than I do, she said, sliding her freshly brewed cup of coffee toward me. Don't we have an intern for coffee runs, I joked. Probably. But interns sleep at night like normal humans. We talked for an hour about algorithms and neural networks and the ethical implications of AI security systems. Not once did she mention the company's valuation or my personal net worth. When she finally asked my name and role, her only response was, "Oh, Well, your security architecture has some interesting vulnerabilities in the authentication protocol. Want me to show you? Natalie valued me for my mind, my ideas, my character, not my success or status. Our relationship developed slowly, built on intellectual respect and genuine connection, rather than the social positioning that had defined so many interactions in my life. Around this time, I also made a decision that surprised many but felt deeply right to me. I established the Marshall Innovation Scholarship, funding education for students pursuing unconventional paths in technology. The application process specifically sought out creative thinkers who might not thrive in traditional academic environments, people like the younger version of myself, who had been told their ideas were too impractical or ahead of their time. When the first scholarship recipients were announced, I invited my grandfather's widow, my step-grandmother Eleanor, to the ceremony. She was in her 80s now, but her eyes were bright as she watched these young innovators receive recognition and support. "Robert would be so proud," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "He always said you had the spark, just like him." Her words meant more than any business award or financial milestone. They connected me to the one family member who had seen my potential when it was just potential, nothing more. The corporate culture we built at Quantum Lock reflected these values. We hired for creativity and problem-solving ability rather than credentials. Our team included PhDs alongside self-taught programmers who had never set foot in a college classroom. What mattered was the capacity to think differently, to see solutions where others saw only problems. One afternoon, as I was reviewing architectural plans for our new research facility, Marcus knocked on my office door. "Got a minute? There's something you should see." He led me to the conference room where a large monitor displayed a business news program. The anchor was discussing the upcoming 5th anniversary of the global tech deal. Industry analysts initially questioned whether Quantum Lock could deliver on their ambitious security promises, the anchor was saying. 5 years later, the system has prevented an estimated $12 billion in potential breach damages across their client base. The company that many dismissed as an unrealistic startup has fundamentally changed how we approach digital security. Marcus muted the television. 5 years, man. Can you believe it? Sometimes, I admitted. Other times it still feels like we're that tiny team working out of your spare bedroom trying to convince someone to take us seriously. Speaking of taking things seriously, Marcus said your sister called the main office line this morning, said she couldn't reach you on your cell. My relationship with Allison had thawed slightly over the years, but we still maintained a certain distance. What did she want? To invite you to Thanksgiving. Said it wouldn't be the same without you. I laughed at the irony. Funny how things change. You going to go? I considered the question seriously. Maybe. Not because I need their approval anymore, but because I'm secure enough now to engage with them on my own terms. Growth. Marcus nodded approvingly. Look at you, all emotionally mature and stuff. The journey from rejection to success had taught me many things, but perhaps the most important was this: true validation comes from within and from the people who believe in you when belief isn't easy. Success might change how the world sees you, but it shouldn't change how you see yourself. I had spent years trying to earn a place at my family's table, only to discover that building my own table, surrounding myself with people who valued me for who I was, not what I achieved, was far more satisfying. The next time someone tells you you're not ready for a seat at their table, consider whether that's the table you really want to sit at. Sometimes the greatest success comes from creating spaces where you and others like you can thrive on your own terms. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who should have believed in you most? Drop a comment below sharing your experience and how you proved them wrong. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more tales of unexpected triumphs. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's finding happiness on your own terms. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.